It's the NFL Preview Show. I'm Lawrence Presman, the Prez. Joining me today, Matt Joseph at Mid-Major Matt, and of course, and with no disrespect to most people who come on my shows, the freaking genius, the machine, the stats magician, Ralph Michaels at Cal Sports LV. I wish he'd changed that Twitter, but that's a different story. What up, boys? Matt, I'll start with you. How are you, my friend?
Doing good. Enjoying some basketball in the afternoon while I'm doing this. So I got one eye on my TV for the old TBT, and then my other eye on you guys.
Okay, well, enjoy. Listen, if it means anything, I've got a pool guy in the pool, landscaping guy in the front. I have boxes up to my ears. I mean, it's actually out of control how hard it is to move. And it's not even moving. My girlfriend and I, Vivian, moved in, and we're moving two houses into this one house. It's just been insane. And we missed last week's show, not because of the move, but because of the internet situation. Really hoping it's fixed. I've been dealing with a whole lot of internet crap the last week, but we're getting there. Ralph, what's going on in Vegas, brother?
You know, we had a busy weekend here with 4th of July. I stayed away from the Strip, but, you know, I did a show with Drew and Rob on the Pac-12 North, and Drew said it was crazy. So hopefully we have some return to normalcy. We'll see what happens here in the next coming weeks. But, hey, like we talked about off air just before the show started, I'm excited next week. We'll be back for one more show, and we'll sort of recap all these changes that have happened. You know, Newton going to the Patriots, what's changed, and anything that we've decided that we've tweaked since doing these shows the last 7 weeks.
I'm like dying to talk about Cam Newton, but we'll hold off. We'll do it next week. Welcome, Abel. How are you? Shane, nice to see you guys. If anybody has any questions, let us know. We are talking AFC West today. And well, let's start just talking about the division as a whole. I know both of you guys feel like this is the most improved division in football. Look, you know, we're going to find out throughout the show. I don't agree necessarily with your boys' opinions on Denver or Ralph, yours on the Chargers, as we have done shows in the past, and you have dropped some snid bits. I think this is the easiest division to predict a winner in. That's for sure. And I also think at minus 450, I'm going to get down on it. But we'll get into that later. You know, look, not a whole ton of changes in this division. Obviously, there have been a few here or there, but I mean, Kansas City is bringing back their offense. They got a nice new running back. They'll be doing some screens and some wheels. He's also a slot receiver, caught 50 passes at LSU last year. Chargers, obviously, with the biggest change. Right now, Tyrod looks like he's going to be the quarterback. Who knows? That didn't work out for him when he was placeholding for Baker. And now he's placeholding for Justin. So I would assume Justin will be in there shortly. Denver, you know, I mean, they're a huge pickup in Melvin Gordon if he's anything like how he was 2 years ago. They got an incredible backfield right now, and they've got weapons. It's going to be interesting to see how Locke does. And the Raiders, I can't make heads or tails. 12th round pick on a deep threat wide receiver with a check down quarterback didn't make any sense to me. But let's get into it. Ralph, the division on a whole, what do you think?
Well, you talked about Kansas City. I mean, this is much like the Patriots when they were making their historic run. They dominated their division.
Minus 450, Ralph? Because I would assume the Patriots were, I mean, I remember them in the 800 mark.
Well, I'm talking about division dominance. We've seen them dominate their division. And over the last 4 years, they're 22-2 straight up against division foes, 18-5-1 against the spread. But I am going to throw this out before we go to mid-major map. If you remember last season, both the Chiefs and the Raiders started at 6-4.
Yes. Is there a point?
I think they finished the seasons a little differently.
Silent. You literally called Matt out, and he didn't even know if you were finished.
No. I just said that, you know, we mid-November last year, The Chiefs were 6-4. The Raiders were 6-4. So what happened? The Chiefs win 9 in a row. The Raiders lose 8 out of 9. But I'm just showing that how close they were 10 games in last season.
Yeah, Matt, before we get into you, I just want to say shout out Johnny Yuma. Nice to see you. Stave McPherson. I know you just asked, are we hiring? Look, I mean, it's an interesting question. We're always looking. We're happy if you apply. Ralph, do you know on the website there is a spot where they can apply, and we have a process, right? Do you know?
You're catching me
Just
off guard there.
email customer service, Stave, but listen, do it with extremely low expectations. In all seriousness, as far as handicapping goes, and Ralph can attest to this, we're getting 20 guys a week emailing us to be handicappers on our sites. Writers, different story, easier opportunity, but the handicappers is tough. And Wager Talk's team is done. We're not going to be. We're adding one more guy. A huge announcement coming your way in a couple of weeks. But Wager Talk is closed. Sports Memo, there are opportunities. Just let us know. But I'll tell you flat out, if you don't have a robust social media presence, it's unlikely that you can join us. And it puts us in such a tough position because we don't mean to be jerks. Every time somebody applies at a company and they're told no, they end up harboring ill will towards that company. And it's not what we want, but there has to be a specific number. I mean, we can't have 50 handicappers on these websites. Anything to add, Ralph?
No, I think you start off like anyone else did. I mean, the people that are here, I mean, I'm talking 35 plus years in the business. We didn't start off by just getting on Wager Talking, making sales. You start off like anyone else, making your presence felt, giving away your free plays. I'll tell you what, Akeem Ski's the perfect example. I mean, he didn't sell plays until he had 18,000 Twitter followers, giving away plays for 5 years. And then he went into pick selling. So that's what you have to do. Start giving away free plays, build your momentum, give it away you're talking about seasons, not just going 10-1 one weekend and say, oh, I'm the greatest handicapper. We're talking about doing it season after season after season to prove your resume and then start looking to hit those bigger stats.
Yeah, it's a great point. And I mean, mid-major, Matt went through it. I mean, Matt was, tweeting out for yours, had a rock solid job at ESPN pre-COVID, ESPN Virginia on air. So, I mean, nobody comes out of anywhere. But yeah, listen, Stave, please send in the application. We're always interested, man. There's diamonds in every rough. Matt, anything to add on this topic, and then we'll get going?
Well, I think for this division, I went through. It's funny because as I was staying off the air, I had more wins than I think I've ever had in a division before. I was trying to look up the most, and it was probably one of those years where the Patriots had like 14 wins. But I can make a case almost for any team potentially. Now, some of them are farther to knock off the Chiefs and win this division. Now, some of them, as I said, are a little further. Well, I'm just saying, I mean, it's a weird year, and this is, one COVID case to the wrong player on the Chiefs, and anybody could win this division, and we'll get into it as we start doing each team, but I know you're going to ask the division odds for each team, and I'll tell you this, I'm not taking the Chiefs at whatever price it is. Would you say minus 450? No, thank you on that. I'll take the value of anybody else in this division potentially other than them.
Well, that's interesting, so let's get to it. Kansas City, right off the bat. Their over and unders 11.5 win total. They're minus 450 to win. And, I want to start there, Ralph. You talk about the New England Patriots, and to win their division, it was never minus 4. I mean, obviously there were times when it was minus 450. I mean, when the Jets had moments, when Miami had moments, et cetera, et cetera. But on a whole, and I even think as early as last year, they might have been minus 600, and I remember a minus 8. I think Kansas City is a lock to win this division, excluding injuries. Now, I understand Mahomes gets injured. This team is in deep trouble, and especially with a mediocre defense. But assuming they stay somewhat healthy, laying $4,500 to win 1,000 seems like a good bet to me. And I know a lot of people shy away from that kind of juice, but Ralph, I mean, me and you have been doing this for a long time, and you go back to the Muhammad Ali days, and the Larry Holmes days and et cetera, the culture of betting has changed so much. People were more than happy to lay minus 1,200 in a boxing match 20 years ago. Now they wouldn't go anywhere near doing something like that. I think this team, the Kansas City Chiefs, and I'll ask you this question, Matt. Assuming injuries don't happen, just assume. Can Kansas City win 9 out of 10 times the way it is right now?
Assuming no injuries and everybody stays healthy, yeah, of course. I mean, they are the most talented team, although another team we'll talk about, I think, is right up there with them. Of course, if there's no injuries, but there's holes. I mean, there are holes to be poked in this team, and I'm sure we'll get into it, but, like, their secondary is not great. Sammy Watkins won't stay healthy, I don't think. The running back situation, it's nice that they added Edwards-Helaire, and it's nice that they've got a decent group, but, I mean, are you going to count on a rookie who's going to have very little practice time and Damian Williams and everything? So, look, I think the Chiefs are the prohibitive favorites for a reason. I'm just not taking them to do it.
Yeah, I'm not. To me, I think it's a no-brainer bet. But I understand what you're saying, Matt, and I just think these teams are light years ahead. And when you say there's a team that's closing in on Kansas City, yeah, okay, the '85 Bears, but they're not around anymore. Ralph, where are you at with Kansas City minus 450?
Well, it's not a bet I'm going to make, Prez, but I can understand your point for value because when I break out Kansas City's schedule, I have them as a 1.5-point dog at Baltimore. I have them as a 1-point dog at New Orleans. And I have them as a 2.5-point favorite at Buffalo. So you have 3 pick'em games. And then everything else, they're a 4.5-point favorite or more. So I'm talking a touchdown favorite plus in 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 in 9 games. So that type of schedule, even the Patriots probably didn't have, where you were a touchdown favorite in 9 games. Mahomes is just, he's maybe the best quarterback we ever seen. We don't know that yet, unless he's done it for a few years. But what he does and how he prepares his team and the throws he makes, and there's no score that they're afraid of that. Clearly they can withstand some injuries. They just can't withstand an injury with Mahomes. But you could say that probably for 28 out of the 32 teams. So, you can't make a bet saying I'm worried about the quarterback getting injured unless you have an injury-prone quarterback who gets hurt every year. But that hasn't been Mahomes. So believe it or not, I actually agree with you. It's not a bet I would make, but breaking down the schedule, the games they would win, I think there's more value saying minus 450 to win the division than there is to make the playoffs where you're laying 1,000, because if an injury happens, they're not going to do either. So then you're getting the better odds with minus 450 versus minus 1,000 on the playoffs.
100%. I just want to welcome Elliot V into the show. He says the Pats will win it all. Okay, Elliot, show us the ticket you bet on that one. Scott Brown, how are you, my friend? Tucker Park, nice to see you. I know you're a Raiders fan. Go Raiders. They are going to go. We know they're going to go. We just don't know which direction yet. Jeffrey Dietz, nice to have you join us. Good afternoon to you. We love having all of you guys in the posting forum. Abel, KC's not winning the Super Bowl this season. There's a target on Mahomes. Yeah. Abel, there's been a target on Tom Brady for 20 years. I don't think Mahomes needs to worry. Matt, I like what Ralph said. Better to bet them at minus 450 than minus 1,000 to make the playoffs. But dude, I look at this and I went through the schedule as well, Ralph, and I'll go to you, Matt. Here, I see 12 wins. The over and under is 11.5. I like the over here. I see 12 win. I see 12-4, assuming no injury to Mahomes, as a worst case scenario. I think they could easily go 13-3 or 14-2. Over 11.5. I like KC minus 450. I like KC over 11.5 as well, Matt.
So I lean to the under, but the problem with my lean to the under is I'm assuming that they're going to lose every one of their questionable games, which, that's tough to do because you at least would like some sort of cushion. Because to me, the 5 games that I think they could or are going to lose, week 2 at the Chargers, which I know they're a 4.5-point favorite, but we'll get into it. I like the Chargers. Week 3 at Baltimore. And then that game at Buffalo, which is a quick turnaround on a Thursday.
The Buffalo game is that sandwich game that is going to be tough for them.
Right, and if they don't lose at Buffalo, then I think there's a chance they lose at Denver because we know Denver has played them tough in the past. I think they can lose at Tampa Bay on November 29th, and then I think they could lose in New Orleans on December 20th. The problem is, as we've said, is it's 11.5 is the number, and if they win one of those games, look, there's a ton of easy games on their schedule, New England and Houston and Las Vegas and all these teams at home that they're massive favorites that they're probably going to win. Heck, they could probably win some of those games without Mahomes. So to me, there's not enough leeway. I lean to the under, but I'm not going to go to the window with it because I'm assuming in my scenario, a perfect scenario, that every losable game they're going to lose. So I lean under, but I'm not going to the window with it.
And Ralph, Matt didn't mention, they end the season with the Saints, Falcons, Chargers. So there are games here that they can lose. It's interesting, normally some of these teams at the Super Bowl win, they come in with a little bit of a hangover. The way they won the Super Bowl in every game in the playoff, I think is going to bode very well for them. This was a team that was down offhand 24-0 to Houston and then won the game going away and covered a double-digit spread. They were down against Tennessee. They were down against San Fran. I think this team is going to come into the season feeling even better than most Super Bowl winning teams do. And they're young. And Chris Jones holding out is definitely going to affect this defense. That guy is a game changer, but I think he'll be there and I think he'll play. So, Ralph, I look at this thing and I think to myself, and I know you guys like Baltimore, I think this Kansas City team three-peat, baby. Not only this year, but next as well. I am so high on Kansas City. But it'll be interesting to see what the defensive coordinators do. We've seen it year in, year out. They find a way.
Prez, I picked KC. Mid-major Matt picked Baltimore. So I'm with you on that. I will say these 2 points with Kansas City. Nobody plays a tougher back-to-back schedule than Kansas City. They have 4 back-to-backs at the Chargers, West Coast, at Baltimore, the best game of the year. At Buffalo, East Coast, then at Denver, their division rival that mid-major Matt loves. At Vegas in the new stadium. Then they go to Tampa to face Brady in the heat and humidity. Then they go to Miami and then to New Orleans. So you play 4 incredibly tough second of back-to-back games, which we'll be trying. Second thing I want to say is if you're a Chiefs fan, if you're a Chiefs bettor, you probably have 1 or 2 more years of true value. With Mahomes just signing his extension, you're now off the rookie contract. Teams are the best when they have a quarterback in the 4th year of a rookie contract that you have all that money to spend on all the other players. That starts to go away next year when Mahomes is cashing his big money and you then can't sign everyone. The reason New England was so successful because they would take these misfits and players that deserve to be paid 10 times what they get paid that they wanted to go pay for Belichick and Brady and potentially get a Super Bowl ring. We'll see if the Chiefs can pull in those type of veterans, but you are going to see a decline in the roster in the next few years because of the salary cap and Mahomes' 10-year deal.
Yeah, and that's why I think this year and next year are really going to be the Kansas City show. Justin Bilbo, welcome to the show. He writes, it's a positive thing that everybody is staying put in KC. Everyone else who's changing coaches, coordinators will have trouble. And Matt, that's a great point by Justin because you've been harping in every show about the chemistry and the practice time and just, all these new players and the turnovers without a lot of practicing on the field because of COVID. And here comes Kansas City, basically unchanged.
Plus, here's the other thing about, and I'm also the guy who harps on the no fans thing. And, we'll get into this potentially in the next show about how they're going to let each city decide how many fans they have. But At Baltimore is not as tough without fans. At New Orleans is certainly not as tough without fans. They get those two teams on the road. Now, look, Kansas City loses their own home field advantage, but if there are no fans anywhere, having those two games away from home with nobody in the stands is going to be a big help to the Chiefs as well.
Yeah, I just want to address a couple more points, and then we'll wrap up on the Chiefs and move on, which I think is going to be really interesting talk, especially where we all stand. I stand differently. Both Abel, who we love, he talks about New England, Mahomes having a target on his back. I responded, so did Brady, and his response is, well, New England played in a weak division. Look, as we move in to talk about Denver, the Chargers, and Las Vegas, I think this is the weakest division in all of football. I don't get it. I mean, come on, man. Like, seriously? Why are Denver, the Chargers, and Las Vegas any different to the Bills, Jets, and Miami Dolphins? I'm going to hear from you, Matt. I know you both disagree. I see this as a Kansas City runaway. So let's get into the next team. The Chargers, plus 800 to win the division. Matt, let's start there. Carmine has a saying, what does plus 800 mean when betting the Chargers? It means if you bet $100, you lose $100. Matt?
Disagree there. I love the Chargers. I love the Chargers. Now, here's my caveat.
Coach, their brilliant running game, their outstanding quarterback. Which one is it?
Now, wait a second. See, I'm a Tyrod guy. So here's the caveat here. I need Tyrod in at quarterback, because if they start, Herbert is not ready this year, and I'm hoping that they get off to a good start and they start playing well, and then they keep Tyrod in there, because I think they're going to have a top 5 defense, and I love everything about this Los Angeles defense. Yeah. I like their coordinator. I'm a big Tyrod guy because, look, Tyrod's never had any talent around him. Look at what he dealt with in Cleveland. He not only did he not have a lot of talent in Cleveland, he dealt with the specter of, hey, we're just getting you to Baker Mayfield. Look at what he dealt with in Buffalo. I mean, the best wide receiver he had in Buffalo was, you ring somebody.
Robert Woods.
Okay, well, Keenan Allen is 4,000. I named one. Well, that's great, but Keenan Allen is 4,000 times better, and you got Hunter Henry and Austin Eckler, and you've got Mike Williams for the couple games he'll be healthy. I love everything. I think this offense is going to be more efficient with Tyrod. I think they're going to run the ball more. They upgraded the offensive line this year. Now, look, the thing that scares me about the Chargers is their schedule is ridiculously tough, but using Ralph's numbers, they are, they're underdogs in a bunch of games, but, there's some toss-ups there. I think this Chargers team is going to rely on their defense. They're going to run the ball a lot. Keenan Allen's going to get, a bunch of 8, 9, 10-yard passes. I think the Chargers, I'm in on the 8-1. I'm in on them to make the playoffs. I'm in on the over. I am a huge Chargers person with the caveat of I need Tyrod in place, not Justin Herbert week 1.
So, Ralph, let's just talk specifically about Tyrod for a sec here. Who is he again? 9 years in the league, and all of a sudden, Matt has decided that he is the man. I'm sure one of his 600 coaches would have seen something in the guy. I'm not suggesting he's not the next Steve Young, but there's definitely no statistics to back up what Matt is talking about.
Well, again, you're talking about playing for bad teams that, were his Buffalo season in 2017. He completed 63%, a 14-4 ratio. Buffalo the year before, 17-6 ratio. Buffalo in 15-26. So you got a 3-year record there, 51 and 16 ratio. That's not bad. I mean, that is a quarterback that can win games with a good defense and a running game. And let's remember, they also went out and the Chargers got 2 stud offensive linemen to figure their biggest issues were their offensive line. You bring in Beluga and Turner from Green Bay and Carolina, it's a big step. Now, we know Kansas City I'm going to give you, here's my stat for the day, Prez and Matt. Kansas City was 12-4 last year. The LA Chargers were 5-11. The Kansas City Chiefs were plus 29.6 yards per game. The LA Chargers plus 54 yards per game. That was number 5 in the NFL.
And that's a great stat.
You had a number 6 defense in the NFL allowing 313 yards per game. Your offense, even with all the crap, you were number 10. So this is a very underrated team. And that's the part of it I like that Matt's on, that this team, their record is so misleading. It doesn't tell you the talent on the field. And, yes, you're getting rid of Rivers, but, Rivers tried to, when you have that type of defense and you have an improved running game this year, you want a defense that can keep you in games. They can. Phillips Rivers tried to win games with a 23-20 ratio, got him into more trouble they can. They need that game manager. So I can agree with Matt that Tyler is that guy. In a crappier Buffalo team, a 51-16 3-year ratio is the type of ratio you're looking at. So, I agree. I am up on the Chargers. My power ratings have them winning 8 games. That's their season win total. But there's a few handful of games that if they got to 9 wins, it wouldn't surprise me at all. So I'm agreeing with Matt as far as the Chargers.
Well, let's talk about their win-loss total. And I do want to say really quickly, I think their defense is awesome. Their edge rush is ridiculous. Ingram and Bosa, they've got good cornerbacks. They've got good linebackers. Johnny Yuma put it best. Every one of their games is going to be 10-9. There won't be one game that's 10-9, but I get the point, Johnny. I like the under in every game right now. I think this team is going to play a very conservative football and really heavily rely on that outstanding defense. In regards to the over and under win-loss, 7.5, strangely, and I don't mean to sound down on the Chargers, I'm just not as high as either of you two are. I actually like the over here. I see 8 wins, and I see a path to 9 or 10. So I lean on the over 8. I think this team is second in the division, and I think they're going to go 8-8 or 9-7. So I do lean on the over, but I will not get to the window on it because 8 is what my power ratings tell me, and 7.5 I just don't have enough room for error. But I do lean on the over. Matt?
I'm on the over Look, I'm very worried for their over because I don't think Herbert is anywhere near ready. And I could see a scenario where they start slow or slow enough for the organization and the cries for Herbert start coming and he comes in and they go down the tubes. The defense does their part. They lose a lot of those 13-10 games. So that's my worry here. The reason why I like the over is I think they're going to win enough that Tyrod's going to be in there the whole season. Now, look, I said on Twitter, they were the perfect team. They should have gotten Cam Newton. I would have felt so much better on the over that if they had Tyrod and then they had Cam Newton and then they had Herbert, like that would have been the perfect situation for me. They didn't. So I like the over. I'm probably going to get to the window on the over, but I'm also hoping that they win and that Herbert stays on the sideline for as long as possible this coming season.
And with the 2 upgrades on their offensive line, Cam would have made so much sense. But you go down their schedule, Ralph, and they're on the road against the Bengals right off the bat. Look at that as a win. You both think they have a chance of beating Kansas City. Then they got the Panthers. They could start 3-0, but they've got the Bucks and the Saints next. I think this is a 3-3 start for this team, give or take. I do like the over, as I said. Where are you, my friend?
I had a note that when we get to the Raiders, that I think they probably have the most important game one of any team in the NFL, going to Carolina and then having New Orleans on deck. I can almost say the same thing for the Chargers. I could see a season almost falling apart by going to Cincinnati and losing and turning into another loss to Kansas City.
Which is the Chargers'
I can also
specialty.
see them. That was with Phillip Rivers. So I can also see the Chargers beating Cincinnati, giving KC a run for their money, beating Carolina, being 2-1. Then even if they lose both to Tampa, New Orleans, they have the Jets, Miami, Jacksonville, and Vegas. So you have 4 more wins before your bye. So to me, boy, that Cincinnati game is as big as any in the league, game number 1, to make sure the opener doesn't cost you 2 wins and a 1-4 start to the season.
It's a great point because, and especially, I understand it. Phillip Rivers was the quarterback of a team that started perennially badly, but the team, it's a cultural thing too, Ralph. And you're right. I mean, if they lose that Cincinnati game, this team could just be like, bloody hell, here we go again. So all of us like the over in the Chargers. Matt's willing to bet 8-1 that they win the division. I'm not. I think that's insane. And Ralph, you're passing on that, right?
I am. Yep. They're one of those teams that I lean with the over. But I'm also a Denver fan. So, when you start knocking off some of those division games, you got to give a win to each one. So I split them. So I'm in the gray area here.
Yeah. So let's go to Denver, brother. I'm not really feeling what you're laying down on Denver. I mean, listen, they have a huge unknown with their quarterback, and if he steps up and is, as good as they hope, or even 80% as good as they are hoping, this team could be outstanding. I mean, if Melvin Gordon comes back and plays anywhere near up to the way he played 2 years ago, they've got a backfield from the gods. They've got a nice, not world-class, but nice wide receiver core. And they're stacked on defense, but they are getting old. This Denver team finds themselves at plus 900 to win the division. So let's start there, Matt.
Well, I mean, I think there's some value there. I'm going to do it because I'm backing the Chargers of the 3 teams that aren't the Chiefs. I could see some value. Look, this wager for anything involving the Broncos is how much you believe in Drew Lock. I mean, if you think that he takes the step in year 2, then you probably do like the over. You probably do like them to win the division. And if you actually think they're going to win the division,
Matt.
Well, I'm just saying, if somebody thinks that Drew Lock is going to be the second coming of you-know-who, they have a good enough defense, too. Like, this is going to be a division, I think, of a lot of unders. And I think that the Broncos have some talent, but they don't have a ton of depth. So if they get injury issues, this is a team that I don't know if they can overcome it. And I think they're a year before their true potential. I think if you're talking about next year's the year when the Broncos will be a lot better. The plus 170 to make the playoffs, if you're optimistic, I could see this division getting 2 teams in. So if you think the Broncos are that number 2 team, the yes at plus 170 to make the playoffs or whatever it is now is not a bad bet.
Yeah, I don't. I think the Chargers are that number 2 team. And I also disagree with your assessment on Denver 2 years from now. I think Denver's going to be caught in that situation where their offense is just going to keep getting better and their defense is going to just keep getting older. Ralph, I can see. Look, my numbers have them going 7-9, so I lean on the under here. Plus 900 is same Carmine quote: "You bet $100, you lose $100," and it could be plus $1 million. You still just lose $100. Ralph.
I just want to shoot something out to Matt first as we talk about gambling. Matt, hearing you talk and talking about the Chiefs, and if something happens to the Chiefs and you like the Chargers and you sort of like Denver, wouldn't you be remiss to not put a half a unit on Denver plus 9-1 to hedge some of the Chargers bet if it happens? Because you're getting 4.5-1 on a half a unit. So I'm just throw that out to you, and you can answer later that with the Chiefs down and you like the Chargers, but you sort of like Denver, but you don't want to bet them. I'd be in that range when you're getting 9-1 to bet a half a unit to hedge the 4.5. So
Matt, go ahead, Ralph.
Go ahead. No, Matt, you want to answer that now?
No, I'm jumping in because I'd like to summarize what he's saying, Matt, and then you can answer. So if you bet $100 on the Chargers to win the division, you lose $100. If you bet $100 on Denver to win the division, you lose $100. If you split the money and you bet 50 and 50, you still lose 100. Go.
I could see what Ralph is saying.
Obviously.
No, I know. I understand. I'm just saying I could see what Ralph is saying. I'm not quite as high on the Broncos, but he's right. I mean, if I think that the Chiefs aren't going to win, and look, the Chiefs are probably going to win. But the way this year's going and the way things are happening, and if heaven forbid, Pat Mahomes gets COVID-19 and he can't play or he misses a bunch of weeks, like this division, I think more than others, the bottom can jump up and get him. So yeah, Ralph's probably right. If I think that the Chargers can win, maybe you throw a little bit on the Broncos or a little bit on the Raiders. I just don't know if I want to do it, Ralph, on all three, the Broncos, Raiders, and Chiefs. I may just pick two of them or, pick one of them and just put a little bit more on it, though.
Or maybe just pick Kansas City at minus 450, but hey, that's just me. And what the hell do I know?
My take on Denver is this. I do like Denver. But the problem is this. You're talking about a very young quarterback, and you're talking about a lot of close games. There's a lot of games between the threes, and to me, you have to learn to win. Now, if Drew Lock played the first 5 games of the season, went 4-1, and got injured, I would be betting Denver over the total. But it's so much different going 4-1 late in the year. You're playing the Raiders in their last game in Oakland. You're playing Detroit when nobody cares. Nobody's studying film like at the beginning of the year. And there's so much excitement of his 4-1 finish that now you have an entire season of DCs getting film on them. And it's a whole different story. So the 4-1 hype is part of the reason I'm not going to bet Denver. There's too much fluff with a 4-1 finish at the end of the year. Yes, he beat the Chargers at home, beat the Texans on the road, beat Lions at home, and Raiders at home. So you have 3 home wins, you have 1 road win, and now, your first 3 weeks of the season, you're playing a Pittsburgh defense, a Jets defense, which is improved, and then you're playing Bill Belichick. By the way, you're starting against the Tennessee team that's pretty good, and let's throw in Tom Brady there. So, excuse me, I don't know if Matt's going to say this, but one of the biggest flat spots, not on Denver's schedule, not on the AFC West schedule, but in the entire NFL, is Denver, October 18th. You go to the Jets, you go to New England, you have a home game against Kansas City on deck, and in between there, you're hosting the Miami Dolphins. You've been a favorite of 5 or more just twice in the last 2.5 seasons. You're 5-12 ATS as a home favorite of 3 or more. That Miami game is there. I wouldn't be betting Denver with even your money, Prez.
Listen, brother, if you think Denver is going to be -5 against Miami in that spot, please bet Miami right now for me. Because one thing I can tell you about this Denver team, win or lose, they're not going to cover 5 a lot. They're all going to be super tight. Like what we were talking about with the Chargers, this is a team that's going to rely heavily on their defense, and they're going to rely heavily on the run game. So I like the unders, and I'll be looking to bet the unders on a lot of these Denver games. But Matt, if you want to bet Denver to win the division at plus 900, I think you're better off waiting till week 4, bro. I think you've got the Titans, Steelers, and Bucks. That's 0-3 to me. Now, I understand they're home against 2 of those teams. I don't see them winning. I think, okay, let's give them the first game. That's 1-2. Then they go to the New York Jets. That's a pick-em game to me. Then they got the Pats, Dolphins, and Chiefs. I think you can bet them after week 7. I think you can bet them after week 3 and still get much better odds than what they're giving now. And they're still giving great odds right now.
Well, and that Jets game is a Thursday night game on the road.
Yeah.
And certainly that's something that's there before the New England game. And we've talked about it. Like, look, Brady may not be in New England, but they're still, a team and a game that you're going to be looking ahead to because it's still Bill Belichick and it's still the mystique of the Patriots. So I agree with Ralph. That Miami game is screaming for the Dolphins, especially since a lot of us on the panel like the Dolphins this year or think that they're going to be better. I think that's definitely a potential look-ahead spot. I think they're going to potentially win week 1. Like, I got to do a little more work, but I don't.
I agree. I think that is a winnable game for them.
I don't love Tennessee as much, and I think that, look, in Denver, week one, you're going to get a rusty team. I think teams at home in week one, and I don't know what Ralph thinks about this but week one, especially in a season like this, I think there's a slight lean to the home teams who are comfortable at least. They're theoretically having their training camp in their stadium, so they're at least traveling, and who knows if teams are going to travel the day before, the day of, so they don't have to stay in a hotel. So I feel like I might be playing more home teams week one with the uncertain off season we've had so far.
Great point, Ralph. Chris Gang, welcome to the show, brother. Matt, great point. Chris Gang, congrats on Mahomes' contract. He's going to be tough, but I think his Raiders can catch up and be number one in the West. Look, for sure. There is no doubt that at some point in the future, the Raiders will be number one in the West. Within the next 100 years, it will happen. Probably, maybe within the next 15. But that's where I'm at on the Raiders and their ridiculous coach. So let's summarize Denver. I can't stand the plus 900. If you do like Denver, wait till week 4 to bet them. Far as over and under 7.5, I see this team as 7 and 9. I lean on the under. Matt and Ralph, give us a quick summary.
I disagree with your wait to week 4, Prez. If you have the Denver Broncos with a young quarterback, they're going to have to win home games. You have a winnable game against Tennessee. You have a winnable game against Tom Brady. Teams aren't going to be conditioned. They're going to Denver with high altitude. I think you bet them early because I think those games are both winnable.
Okay, Matt?
I lean to the over. I got 8 wins for the Broncos, but I'm not running to the window. I don't love it enough. I mean, maybe if you get a plus price on the over, I would take it, but I lean to the over.
Boys, the Raiders and Kansas City Chiefs, same record in week 10 of last year. Is that correct? Yeah, 6-4 start. Now they sit at plus 1,100. They're 6.5 on the win-loss record. I don't think they did a whole slew of damage in the offseason, to be honest with you. I mean, Jason Witten doesn't scare me. Corey Littleton is a great pickup. That guy's a really, really solid linebacker. Randall's a good wide receiver. Ruggs is going to do well. I mean, to me, if at plus 1,100 for the Raiders and plus 900 for Denver, there's more value on the Raiders from my perspective. I can't get to the window on that, but I do like over the total of 6.5. I'm going to tell you guys flat out right now, I think Kansas City ends 12-4, and all other teams in this division are within one game off of 8-8. So 6.5 for me. I like the over, but I don't like the Raiders. Ralph, I'll go to you first.
Okay, probably the most important thing we're going to do, we always tell people to shop, okay? If you want to bet the Raiders, do not come to Vegas and bet the Raiders. The Raiders are 7.5 here. Why?
What?
They moved to Las Vegas. Prez, it was like the goal. Remember what happened with the Golden Knights here the first year? We were inundated with Golden Knights money. Same thing here. Raiders are 7.5 here because so many local people are betting the Raiders with the first year of the new stadium. So, if you like the Raiders, you bet them offshore. If you want to bet the under, you come to Vegas and bet the number. So with that said, probably the most unique thing that I'm going to talk about the Raiders is their offensive line. And this comes out from the Wager Talk offensive line report that we put up last week. So what I do is I have every person that played a game and started last year. I have the guys that are gone in red. I have the guys that are added to the team. So the Raiders were very unfortunate. Only one offensive line had 16 games, and they started 10 different offensive linemen. That was the 4th highest in all of the NFL. Well, that means you're not going to have any continuity. Your quarterback's not going to get protection. You're not going to be able to run the ball. All 10 offensive linemen that made starts are back. Plus, they added Eric Kush, who started 7 games for the Browns. You are talking about one of the deepest offensive line, and they have a first-rounder in Miller, a couple second-rounders, a third-rounder. And I think that's the biggest improvement in the Raiders, no question. The offensive line is a big deal. When you talk about their numbers, they were number 14 last year in yards per game diff. They were number 14 in yards per play diff, which is even more important than yards per game. So record-wise, they had the number 11 offense and the number 19 defense. The defense, I think, has improved. The offense, I think, has improved. The excitement of the stadium. And, you can't compare the Rams going to LA and playing in the LA Coliseum. You can't compare the Chargers going to LA and playing in a soccer facility. You're talking about these people coming to Las Vegas, playing in a new state-of-the-art practice facility in Henderson, playing in a new state-of-the-art stadium in the Allegiant Stadium. So you really can get, I think, some momentum from that. Again, I think their game one against Carolina, one of the most important games. I have that as a pick 'em because they host New Orleans as a dog. They go to New England as a dog. They host Buffalo, I have them as a dog, and they go to Kansas City. If they can beat Carolina and steal one or two wins going into a bye, I think it's a whole different season. Yeah. If they lose to Carolina, they could start 0-5 and everything, all the excitement is poof out the window and just fade the Raiders.
Yeah, and Matt, we're going to go to you straight away, but just to let everyone know, Believer72, we'll discuss your questions. Scott Brown will discuss the backup quarterback on the Raiders as well, but let's just stay focused. Over 6.5 for me. I feel like Ralph leans towards the over as well there, but nobody's touching plus 1100 except maybe you because you're so opposite today.
No, I'm not. I do lean to the over. The thing for the Raiders is, look, I like their offensive line. I'm really intrigued for Lynn Bowden Jr. and how they're going to use him because he was a Swiss Army knife at Kentucky. He played quarterback, running back, wide receiver. He did everything, and he was really good at everything. And I know the NFL is a step up, as much as SEC fans love to talk about how good their football is. But he's a guy, and I know how much Ruggs is going to look nice in that offense. And I actually think Jason Witten, while he may not help as much on the field, he's going to be a really nice guy to have in the locker room. Like, this is a team that needs the veteran presence. Obviously, Gruden is a veteran presence and a guy that's probably going to capture a lot of that. But I think Witten's going to help more in the locker room than on the field. I actually think, if Ralph will oblige me here, one of the flat spots is, that New England game, if you've got a Monday night game where you're opening a new stadium, and I know the Raiders have been on Monday Night Football. I think it was like 1 or 2 years ago it was recently, but you've got all the pomp and circumstance of opening a new stadium, and you've got New Orleans, and it's Monday Night Football, and yada, 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 and then you've got to go 6 days later to New England. Granted, it'll be a New England team that's not as good, Cam Newton and everything, but I feel like that's the massive flat spot there. Is the Raiders traveling to New England. I like the over at 6.5. I'm not going to go to the window at 7.5 for the people who are watching in Vegas because I think I see about 7-8 wins for Las Vegas. But this is all part of it, Prez. We all like these teams. This is why I think everybody's closing the gap on Kansas City. We like the over for the Chargers. We like the over for the Raiders. We think Denver could be better. Ralph's higher on Denver than you and I. But I just think this, they still got a long way to go to catch the Chiefs. But I think all three are better than they were last year. And that's why the Chiefs are not a foregone conclusion.
Yeah, and just for the record, I like the under in Denver. Guys, let's get to the chat window and take apart some of the questions in the air. So the first thing I want to talk about is one of our listeners. Hey, Drew Martin, nice to see you, my brother. Everybody make sure to check out Drew. Monday and Tuesday, he did a politics show with Teddy, betting politics this Monday. And Tuesday is him, Ralph, and Rob Vino, college football. Outstanding show, so check that out. Guys, let's start first. One of our listeners says the Raiders are the best backup quarterback in football. In the West. Look, I think the Chargers have the best backup punter, so I think it offsets it a little. But the bottom line to me is I understand Mariota might be the best backup quarterback in the West. The problem is, and we spoke about this in depth when looking at Baltimore, unlike RG3 and Lamar, we've got a backup quarterback that plays completely differently to Derek Carr. I don't understand how they fit together at all. It's just, I mean, you've got a running quarterback who plays on the outside versus a drop back quarterback who looks at check downs. I don't see a fit with these two, but nor do I make bets based on backup punters. Ralph?
Well, it's still Derek Carr's team. I mean, there's no question. Gruden has said it. So if you see Mariota, then there's issues.
Yeah.
So it's either Carr suck or Carr got injured, which isn't going to be a positive. So, people talked about how, it's such an incentive-laden deal to get Mariota here. Well, shit, they still guaranteed him his first whole year of $7.5 million. So, I mean, they paid the guy good money to get here. So, I'm not sure of that move either, Prez. If Carr's your guy, then you could have spent that $7 million better elsewhere. I truly believe that.
Alex
you
Smith.
could have helped. You could have helped.
And he fits so perfect. He's Carr and Alex Smith are the same quarterback.
But, Gruden is just Gruden. Gruden just does bizarre shit sometimes, and that's what we'll have to learn. And I'll have to learn living in Las Vegas, and watching the Raiders is that, there's what normal people do and there's what Gruden does.
Yeah. Yeah, some guy, Drew Martin, never heard of him. He pops into the chat room and lays down Mariota is a Heisman winner, good guy, and I think got a raw deal in Tennessee. Yeah, Tim Couch is a Heisman winner and a good guy too, and so is that dude from Miami before Testaverde. I can't even remember his name, but come on, Drew. Who gives a shit whether he's a good guy or not, whether he won the Heisman or not? But hey, you and Teddy can discuss it on your opening line report on Monday. Matt, do you care about the backup quarterback on the Las Vegas Raiders?
I would say a little bit this year because of the circumstances. And I know you're going to get into the COVID testing and thing like that, but I think this year, yeah. I think that's why New Orleans has a leg up with Jameis and Taysom Hill, theoretically. That's why I think, if you think Jarrett Stidham's going to start, that Cam Newton's technically the backup in New England. Jacoby Brissett being the backup for Phillip Rivers and knowing the offense in Indianapolis. I think this year more than others, yeah. You actually have to have depth in a lot of positions because we've seen in baseball, we've seen in soccer, weird things happen with the testing. If somebody tests and they don't get the test back in time, he doesn't play. Depth this year more than any other. So, yeah, I do care. Now, I'm not as high on Mariota, so I don't think that matters.
They don't even fit. The whole offense would have to change.
Well, that's what I'm saying. But I do. But your question was, does the
know.
backup matter? And I think the backup does matter this year. Now, Mariota's a different case. You're right. This is not RG3 and Lamar Jackson. This is not two of the same people. This is not somebody who's been in that system for years. So, yes, the backups matter, but I'm not ready to go buy the Raiders because of Marcus Mariota all of a sudden.
Yeah, no, I'm with you there. Believer72 asks, Prez, do we know how late before the game the players will be tested for COVID? I know nothing. Ralph?
They have not heard a plan yet. I mean, I know the NHL, who was going to play every day, was testing the players at night, and they would have the results in the morning. So that's NHL. But with the NFL a week in between, I'm going to just say you're probably going to get tested right after the game. And then you'll probably get tested before the game. But, we've heard now, preseason games, I'm only expecting them to play one or two preseason games, if any. I think there'll be some scrimmages. And then I think when the regular season starts, but you're going to be sequestered. You're going to be quarantined. And, we'll just take it as it goes.
Yeah. And just to talk about Drew again, he did make a good point right now where he says he likes the backup quarterback having mobility. And Drew, that is a fair point because in mid-game, the defense is game planned for a pocket passer who's going to hit a whole lot of short throws down the middle. You throw Mariota in the middle of the game, yeah, look, the defense is going to be caught off guard. So that is a great point. Running back.
I will throw in. That is probably my number 3 most important point when handicapping preseason football. is when your backup quarterback is unlike your original quarterback and he's mobile. That is absolute gold in preseason.
There you go. Running backs, best one in this division. We've got a lot of guys saying Jacobs. One of them suggests the over on rushing yards. I think he's a stud. I think Denver is the best running game in the division, though. Matt?
Probably as a whole, yes, especially if they keep Freeman. Here's the thing on the Raiders, though. Wouldn't you, if you were a defensive coordinator, stack the box and make Carr beat you with a rookie wide receiver, Tyrell Williams, and a mediocre slot guy in Hunter Renfrow? So to me, I think the Raiders have to show people they could throw it and get that box a little loosened up a little bit.
Boys, we're going to wind down this show. I want to keep it under an hour so that we can get it up in all the places that won't take files over an hour long. Everyone knows where I stand. KC, and the rest are around 8-8, and who knows which way they will land. I like the overs in the Raiders, Chargers, and Kansas City. Win-loss total, the under in Denver. Ralph, regale us with your last thoughts, brother.
A bunch of season wins that I'm not betting any, but two of the most important week one games for me are the Raiders at Carolina, Chargers at Cincinnati, and I will look to reevaluate after those game ones.
Matthew?
Chargers for me. As long as they go Tyrod, I think I'm so high in the Chargers, and I'm sprinkling all sorts of playoffs and over on the win total and to win the division. But if it's Herbert, no thank you. I'll stay away from the Chargers then.
Well, listen, guys, we're going to do one more show next week where we're just going to talk about the whole league in general, some of the big changes that have made, summarize some of the bets we're making. Ralph and I have a $1,000 bet already live. Matt and I would like to do something with Cleveland. So we're going to talk about that. So make sure to check us out next Tuesday. As well, we've got so much coming up on our YouTube platform. Make sure to follow any of us on Twitter. We're all tweeting out the Wager Talk TV schedule on a regular basis. 2 minutes we start the Korean baseball show with Andrew McGinnis and Dave Koken. And then tomorrow we have NASCAR up first. No, at 2 o'clock. Stoppage time with me at 1 o'clock, NASCAR at 2. So make sure to join us for that. And of course, there's a big UFC fight coming up. So we'll have Straight from the Strip as well. And Kyle as well does his own show every week. Guys, it's been a privilege to do this with both of you. Ralph, we are doing the presidential address, all yours. So thank you for that. And guys, stay tuned. Lots of big announcements coming from wagertalk.com, the only company in the sports handicapping industry that is moving at 100 miles an hour during COVID. Love you all. Thanks so much. And no believer, I can't get you a date with Minty Bets for many reasons, especially she's married and she doesn't date people with the name Believer. It's actually in her profile. That's it, boys. Ralph, give us one more of your, yeah, baby. See you all tomorrow at stoppage time. Me, Carm, Nick, and Kevin. No, Nick's not on tomorrow. Me, Carm, Kevin Dolan, and Pavlos. Later, everyone. Thanks for stopping by.